Okay guys, we're back this week. This is the Eclipse 2 class. Did y'all have any questions about what we went over last week? All of this stuff is just going over what we went over in the Eclipse 1, okay? But I want to make sure that you guys have this, because once we move on, I don't want to be answering questions about stuff that we should have learned in this class. Do you understand? And then there's going to be a few questions that pop up or whatever, and it's not that big of a deal. I just don't want to be going through stuff totally, completely, you know, having to do the lesson over again, okay? I want the majority of it to have sunk in or whatever. So we're going to finish up what we need to finish up this week, and then next week we're probably going to get on the machines. If we have a little bit of time this week, we may, but I don't think we're going to have enough time to get on the machines this week. But we will next week for sure. So bring your machines next week and be ready to go with the machines next week. Okay? Any questions about what we went over last week? No? Okay. All right, numbers overview.
With Eclipse, 2 basic steps will give you excellent number translation. Fine-tune your dictionary, and fine-tune your number settings. Pure number bar strokes aren't even necessary in your dictionary.
Y'all understand that, right? Okay? We went over that the first time about the numbers. When you use the number bar, you don't have to define it. Okay? It's only when you write the number out that you want it defined. Okay?
Your numbers building blocks will be defined as words, not digits. 100, 1,000, million describe orders of magnitude. Write the word dollars when you hear it, not before, and it, like other money words, will trigger number conversion with the appropriate currency symbol.
Y'all got that? On money? You don't have to do the dollar symbol, any of that stuff. All you have to do is write it when you hear it, and it knows what to do. If you put it in the brackets correctly and put dollars around the brackets, then it's going to do what it needs to do when it follows a number. Okay?
If a number doesn't translate right, it's probably because of an old dictionary entry. Remove such entries and your building blocks will work properly.
You see what it's telling you right there? This should not be defined together. Okay? So what do you need to define here? Click. Just 1,000. But what is that?
$1,000. So it puts the...
That's $1,000. Okay? So you leave that out. Leave out the 25. You don't have to define 25, because then it's going to define it every time like this. And that's not what you want it to do when it's with this. 23,025,003 cents. Okay? You don't want to define it like this, because it's always going to come out like that every time. Okay? So whenever it has to do with the number, all you do is define that. You don't define the number.
But you're defining this as an action for it to, like using the brackets is what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all you need to define is this. Okay?
To say what?
$1,000. Okay?
Like the words $1,000.
Dollars. Yeah. So it doesn't need to be, this does not need to be in here. Okay?
A separate presentation deals with finding and moving entries in and out of your dictionary. Occasionally you'll want to convert numbers after translation. Mark the number first, then click on the toolbar icon, or use the menu or the speed key, Control and the pound key together.
You understand what it's saying right there? So if it comes up kind of weird, like that number that they just showed,
convert numbers after translation. Mark the number.
So if it comes out like this, and you want it to come out differently, then that's when you do the Control pound 3, I think, or Control Shift 3. I think it's Control Shift 3 to convert numbers. So mark and either F7 or hyperkey M to mark it, then press Control number, okay, which is 3. The pound sign is the 3, okay?
Number first, then click on the toolbar icon.
You don't need that toolbar icon. We've already gone over that about putting too many icons up here. You don't need all of that stuff. So it's going to tell you what to do.
Or use the menu or the...
In the edit, okay, you're going to come in the edit box, miscellaneous, and then come over to numbers, okay? Guys, go through these things because they have some really good things. The spell check word, do y'all use that? Slick?
Yeah.
Really good stuff right there. So, you know, go through some of these things, and you know, I'm sure y'all use this. Period at the end of a sentence, question mark at the end of a sentence, in hyperkeys. Okay? So when you're in hyperkeys, actually no, it's not. It's just regular. When you're just in regular, it's good. When you're in hyperkeys, just P by itself puts a period at the end of the sentence, and just the Q by itself puts a question mark at the end of the sentence, okay? Alt P puts it at the end of the sentence when you're just in regular. When you're not in hyperkeys, you're just in insert mode, okay? And Alt Q and then Alt D puts dashes at the end of the sentence. Okay, so wherever that sentence is, it's going to put dashes. So go over some of that stuff. Y'all know about the apostrophe, right? Y'all use that? Really good too.
The key, Control, and the pound key together. Here you see your number as it starts out, and as it would look depending on which format you choose. However, your numbers settings...
You see how you can turn it around if you want to put it in quantity or money, ordinal, and that's what it's doing with the TH. So if you want to turn it around, that's what it does. It shows you how it came in. Then it shows you what it's going to look like. So when you change these different things, it changes right here. So you never push OK until you know exactly what you want. Okay?
I have a question.
Okay.
This is from last semester when you were teaching us ordinals.
Yeah.
I took the pound, or the asterisk and the E
Yeah.
to be my, like, STTHRE.
Yeah. Ordinal.
Okay, but I cannot remember for the life of me how I put it that way, and I think I want to say I did it this way.
Did you define it?
Yes.
No, you would have to define it.
Okay.
You'd have to
so was
define it.
different.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was wondering, because I remember.
So you can always go into your dictionary and look. So whenever it comes up on one of the ordinals, just put your arrow or your prompt on that ordinal, and then go into F9, or just go into dictionary,
Okay.
and then it'll tell you how it's defined. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
will control, and so the gear icon takes you quickly to adjust those settings. Within these short presentations, it's not possible to show all that Eclipse automatic number conversion can do. So a separate in-depth ePower video tutorial is available on automatic number conversion.
Got that? All right. Any questions about that? No? Okay, number settings.
Here are two quick examples of how to fine-tune your numbers settings. The numbers section of your user settings asks two general questions, First, how do you write numbers? So what do you even want number conversion to process? And second, what kinds of numbers do you want in words as opposed to digits? This first writer doesn't use the number bar and wrote the word "and" when it was heard. So ignore written numbers is not turned on, but process "and" as part of a number is turned on.
You see what it's saying? Because I think you do that, don't you?
If they say it,
No, on numbers. Do you write out all your numbers?
I write them out, yes.
You write them out?
So if they say 103, I have it set where
It's,
when I write 103.
it's W-U-N-H-U-N-D-R-E-D.
W-U-N-H-U-N.
So you don't use a number bar at all?
No.
Okay. Pay attention because that's what they were just talking about.
Well, yeah, well, I do that.
Okay.
I
And
don't.
everything comes out?
Yes,
Good.
but I have it on process and as a number, so it does, when I hit and 3,
Yeah.
it doesn't read the and, it just says
Good.
103.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. Good.
For general quantity numbers, this user has Eclipse write out 1 through 10, but put 11 and above in digits. For currency, do not write out any numbers, just use digits. And for ordinals, write out 1st through 10th. There are different settings for what to write out at the start of a sentence. And as of 1 million, Eclipse will use words to make large round numbers easier to read.
You see what it was saying right there on the million? How it's easier to write 1 million rather than one
Eclipse will use words to make
than this. Okay? You see that? Slick? So, you always want to make it easier, okay? You don't necessarily have to do it in numbers for the point to get across, and it looks a lot better like that. It reads a lot better.
large round numbers easier to read. This number bar user uses word strokes to indicate when a number from 1 to 10 should not be in digits. So ignore written numbers is turned on, and Eclipse is not being asked to write out any values.
Got that? So when you want them written out like that, turn it off, write out no values. Got it? Everyone.
What is this for?
Indicate when a number from 1 to 10 should not be in digits. So ignore written numbers.
So when you write out your numbers, so I don't know how you would do it, because that's going to be tough because you write your numbers the same way.
Yeah, but I mean, you click on write out 1 through 10, it'll write out.
Yeah.
If I hit 3, it'll
Yeah.
write it out.
But like I don't. So I mean, like whenever I write 3, then it has to come out 3.
THRE.
Yeah, and you'll see in the sentence.
Oh, that's for people who are using the
Indicate
number
when a
bar.
nu-
Yeah, because this is totally different. You don't want a number 3 here because it's talking about 3 purchases,
Yeah.
a number of purchases. So it's written out, okay? And that's what it's telling you. Ignore written numbers and no values.
Number from 1 to 10 should not be in digits. So ignore written numbers is turned on, and Eclipse is not being asked to write out any values. Number conversion is treated at length in the efficient editing tutorial, so be sure to look at it.
Got that?
Why would you define it or check it to where it would write out 1 through 10? Because I know that that's the rule, anything under 10 you write out. But what if you're doing measurements or something that requires it to be a number form?
Well, if you use the number bar, then you won't have to worry about it.
So you're saying this is ideal for a writer who uses the number bar when it should be a number
Yeah,
and writes it out when it should be right now.
yeah. Yeah. All right.
What page are you on? I'm trying to look for where you're at, and I can't find it.
Page 1.
What?
You're on numbers?
Oh, there it is, okay.
Yeah. we talked about this last time too. At the beginning of a sentence, you know, what numbers should be written out, okay? And usually it's 1 through 100 is commonly written out, not numbers, written out. But like if they say, you know, well, what year were you born? 1970. You're not going to put NINETY, you know, you're going to put 1970, the numbers, 1970.
What if they say 96?
You would still put 96 because it's comma, I mean apostrophe 96 because it's signifying a date.
You can start a sentence like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Really important, guys, is cleaning up your dictionary. Okay? Really important. Clean up your dictionary when you get the chance to do it, because if you don't, then you're going to come up with problems, especially on your numbers. Okay? But it should be on everything. But, you know, especially on your numbers. So whenever you get a chance, if you're not practicing, or if you know what, I'm just tired of practicing, you know, I still have another 30 minutes or 45 minutes to do something, but I'm slapping the keys right now, or, you know, I just want to do something else. Get on your computer and get in your dictionary and start changing this stuff, okay? Because I guarantee you probably have some things in there that need to be changed, okay? And this is the way you do it. I mean, you know, especially for one, it's written out 1, and for 1, nothing is needed in the dictionary, okay? Just like I told you, you don't need to define the digit, okay? You just need to define the words, all right? Dollars is the same way. You just define dollars, okay? Now you have to be careful when you use a number with something that you want to signify as the dollars, okay? Because then you do have to put it in there, okay? If you use it in the same stroke is what they're talking about. Now if you do 5 and then DLARS as a second stroke, then you don't have to worry about it. But when you use it in the same stroke, that's how you're going to have to define it, okay?
With the number.
With the number, because the number is in there, okay? Does that make sense? That's the only time that you use the number with it, is when you use it in the same stroke. If it's not the same stroke, then you don't have to worry about it.
Are we talking about the DZ?
Yeah. So you do 5DZ, 6DZ, 7DZ, you have to define it with the number, is what it's telling you.
Question.
Hmm?
This is referring to number part?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay? And see how it's telling you $5 is different? You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is only dollars needs to be defined, because now it's 2 strokes. Okay? It's 2 separate strokes right there. So you don't have to worry about defining both of them. You don't have to define the number, because it's 2 separate strokes right there. Got it? Slick?
Is DZ already an ending? What is DZ?
Well, it could be ED. So if you drag the Z with it, you have to be careful. So if you have a habit of dragging that Z, be careful with the way you define it, because then you're going to have to set it up as a conflict.
Yeah, but the DZ ending by itself, I don't have to use anything.
So
I mean,
if
you
you-
use it
But
with
when
the
you're putting it with the
sign.
number, it's not going to matter,
Yeah.
because you're going to have to define it.
But say you were a really clean writer, could you just define DZ to be dollars and attach it to a number? Or could you define DZ by itself to do what you originally wanted it to do with the 5?
You could, as a totally separate stroke. You'd have to do it as a totally separate stroke, because when you do it with the number, you have to define it with the number. So if you want DZ to be your dollar symbols, like instead of writing DLARS, dollars every time, when you hear $5 and you write 5 and then come back DLARS, instead you want it to be 5, next stroke, DZ, yes, you could.
But
You
would
could.
that conflict with anything by us doing that? I mean, that you could think of offhand?
Well, I mean, it would conflict with ED, but like she said, if you're an extremely
I see what you're saying. Like,
clean
look at
writer,
that.
then no, it wouldn't.
Okay.
Because you'd stroke your D completely separate every time.
But if you, like you're saying, if you drag in your Z sometimes,
Yeah.
then it would.
Then it would. So you have to be careful with that. So if you're a clean writer, then absolutely you could. But if you're not, then you just have to know that it needs to be set up as a conflict, or you can use it as dollars every time, and it's going to come up dollars when you do it. Okay? So if you said he punted the ball, and it's punted, and you did DZ, it's going to say punt dollars. You see? So you have to be careful with that. Okay? And how, you know, these are the same way. When you do the 10s for cents, it's the same way. And you have to define it the same way. So you have to remember to put that bracket in there and not inside the bracket. So pay attention to what you're doing right here, because if you define it wrong, it's going to come out wrong. Okay? So I know you're used to putting stuff in the bracket, but you have to set it up the way that they tell you to set it up. If not, it's not going to come out. Okay? So that's the way that you would do it. 100 is the same way. You just define 100. And that's the way you would do the $100. Like we were doing, what was the other one? $1,000? Same way. So that's the way that you would define it. Or just do the $100. So either way, it's going to know. When it's with a number and you do the HUNDZ, it's going to know $100, and it's going to know to put it in as $100. Okay? Got it? So all of this is just kind of the same stuff. 2 different strokes. You don't, this is the old way of doing it. Don't do it that way. You don't have to define this anymore. You just define that. All right? All right, like when you're doing decimals, be real careful about the way that you do it, okay? When they say 7.3, you need to define it, you need to stroke it a little bit differently. And they tell you to define it without the T. So it's point, okay? And then that's the way that it's defined, is decimal, okay? Inside the brackets, and it knows what to do. So when they're talking about, you know what, I need 0.5 milliliters of whatever. That's the way you do it. 0.5. Not point. Point. Okay? Slick? Falling asleep? You ready to go already?
I've been here since 8:30.
Huh?
I've been here since 8:30.
Hey, we can leave.
No,
You're free to go when you want. All right, 9:30 a.m., same thing, okay? A.m. can be as a conflict. I don't do it as a conflict, okay? And that's where my asterisk comes in, okay? When I do it as time. When I do it as time, I do 9:30, I do time, with an asterisk. So T long IM with an asterisk represents time, so it knows to put the colon in there, and then I do AM. So if they say 9:30 AM, then that's the way it comes out. Okay?
I thought Eclipse automatically changes it for you. That's a good question.
And it may. This is the way that I stroke it out. So
Okay.
it may do it. I don't know. I've never done it.
I know, I was thinking of that right now, like when you write somebody says 10:30 AM, like on a test or something,
Yeah.
and I do A asterisk M for the AM, I think I'm trying to remember if it automatically converts it with the colon between the numbers.
And it may.
10:30.
It may. Mine just, I have mine defined as that. So when they do 9:30, I do the time, and then they say AM is a totally different stroke. So I know when it's time, I automatically stroke it, and that's just the way my mind works now. So whether you can, I guess that's what they're telling you here, So it all depends on how you want it to come out. So if you don't want it to come out, then you need to define this differently.
Which way is the proper way to have it? Is it with the two?
I do it this way.
Okay.
Some people do it that way. But it's like saying you do it this way with the clock. 5:00 clock. No. That's not the way that I do it. Now some people do it that way. I wasn't taught that way because I was taught that this is already 5 o'clock. So you don't do 5 o'clock, o'clock.
But yet you write out o'clock if they say 5 o'clock.
But I write FIVE. So my 5 o'clock is FIVE o'clock, 5 o'clock. It's not 5 o'clock. Yeah. And that's the way that I was taught. Whether it's right, wrong, I don't know.
Is it true, tell me if I have this right, if they actually say o'clock, you write O.
That's what we were talking
That's what I'm
But
talking
if
about.
they just say 5, you put.
If
the
you just say,
decimal.
if they just say 5 and you know that it's time,
You do the start or
you do that. You don't do that. Well, what time did you go? 5. Don't do that. Without this, without the PM, you just write a 5.
So a
No.
reader shouldn't read it 5 o'clock, it should read 5 PM, even though it has 00.
What's that?
Even though it has 00, it would read 5 PM still.
that's what he's saying, that he was taught not to write it with the 0 because that's considered o'clock. But he's
Yeah.
saying some people do write it that way and then some people write it the other way where it's just 5 PM. You know
So
what I mean?
like if they're saying, well, what time do I need to be at your house? You be at my house at 5. Then you write it like that. 5. 5:00. That's how you write it. But if they say, you know what time do you need to be at your house? 5 PM. That's how you write it. Unless you do it that way.
So
It all depends on how you do it or how you're taught to do it.
So I guess I'm asking, even though you have the colon 00, if the lawyer said, could you read that back, I would read it 5 PM, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
How else would you read it?
I would
5
think-
o'clock?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, no. You read it the way that they said it, okay? And it's gonna come out this way, okay? So the only time you're gonna do o'clock is when they say o'clock. But the point that I was trying to make about the o'clock is when they say 5 o'clock, that you don't do it this way, 5:00. Now, if you decide to do it that way, you do it however you want. I'm telling you, I don't do it that way because I was taught that this is 5 o'clock. So you don't do 5 o'clock, o'clock. But some people do it that way. And I mean, if you do it that way, it is what it is. So now some people do it this way, where they do their numbers with a letter, okay, to signify, and you do it in one stroke. So 1K, 2K, 3K, 4K, 5K is 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and that's fine. If that's the way you want to do it, help yourself, okay? But I also don't do it that way. I do it the SEVEN, okay? So, a little bit different. And there's a way of changing it in your settings that, like I do my number bars with o'clock, but it still comes out as 7. SEVEN. When it's with o'clock, and it knows how to do it. Okay? But this is the way you define it if you do it with the 7K. 1K, 2K, 3K, 7K. That's the way you do it. 7, bracket, close bracket, o'clock. Okay? This is the way that you do it also, okay, with o'clock. You can just define it as o'clock, or you can define it as the number with the large G and then o'clock, okay? And that's what they're saying right here. So this, some people consider equivalent to this, and that's the way that I write it. 7 o'clock.
Write it out.
Some people do it like that. And I was taught that it's 7 o'clock, o'clock, if you do it this way, but
So you
that's
do
the
it
way
with
you
the
want to
digit,
do it.
7 o'clock. You do it with the digit, 7 o'clock.
No, I do it with the word.
Oh, with
It
the
comes
word.
out the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that old way where you do the number and the K on the top,
Yeah.
if I wanted to use that, I would have to do it for each time, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
Yeah. So you only have to define it 12 times.
What's the G for?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because
Yeah,
I'm
trying to
having
think of
there,
what
Generic digit.
Generic digit, that's what it is.
so I
Generic.
would put a G
Yeah.
in my formula.
Not if you're going to do it like this. You can just define it like that.
Because it's defined in my dictionary, but it's the opposite. If you hit the number and the K, it does the colon 00. I would actually prefer it that way.
Oh, okay. So how are you going to do regular time? Like if they say be there at 7 and you want it to come out as time.
It's a good question.
I do it as time. Time with an asterisk. So it's an extra stroke. You don't hear it, but you write it. So if they say, well, what time do you need to be there? You need to be there at 7. I hit 7, time with the asterisk. And then that signifies it to put it as 7.
With the colon 00.
Yeah,
And that's a two-stroke.
yeah. But if not, if you do it 7K, then it's going to come out o'clock.
But you're saying that yours is defined it as time. Is that what you're saying?
Yours
Yeah.
is defined this way, right?
When she hits
Yeah.
like the K.
I'll tell you what, that's not a bad way to do it. Because to do the o'clock, you can do the o'clock just, what is the K located? Mine is with an asterisk. Clock with an asterisk signifies o'clock.
So it's still a two-stroke
Yeah.
unless.
So one of them is going to be a two-stroke. Unless you do it 7 asterisk K or 7,
Yeah, I was gonna say the asterisk K is the one from mine, it comes out o'clock. Instead
Yeah.
of having to write o'clock, I just hit the
Yeah.
asterisk K.
but you have to be careful the way you define it, because then it's going to come out like that. It could. So you have to be careful the way you define it and the way that you want it to come out. So you'll have to mess with it a little bit and kind of see what you like or what you want it to do. But don't always get freaked out about trying to shorten everything, because then you start getting mixed up, and it could mess you up in a test. Oh man, that's for time, and I meant o'clock, and now you're thinking, and 10 words have gone by because you're trying to think of how you did 7:00. Really? You can do that in your editing. So you don't want it to cost you a test. So just stay consistent with what you're doing and remember exactly what you defined and how you did it, and that it comes like that. and that's how you want it. You want it to come to you quick because it's a brief. And briefs are meant to shorten the time up, not sit there and, oh man, what's the brief for? If you got to sit there and think about it, one, it's not a very good brief, or two, you haven't learned it well enough to use it. And maybe it is a great brief, but it's not helping you. So the whole point of briefs is to help you, okay?
How did you say you do o'clock? Clock with an asterisk?
I do clock with an asterisk, so K-L-O-K asterisk, and then it comes up o'clock. Okay. I don't know if you guys do the miles an hour.
Have briefs for those.
Yeah, and if you do, then great.
What's the rule for miles an hour? Is it still 1 through 10, you write it out, or is it automatic? The digit?
I think it's automatically a digit.
I think, yeah, it's automatically a digit. Yeah. So. So like pounds, if they're talking about 25 pounds, you don't do it, you know. So anything with a number that comes after a number that's supposed to be with the number, don't do it with the number. Unless you do it as a one stroke, okay? So if you do it as a one stroke and you move to, where is it, England, where they talk about pounds as money and it's 25 pounds, you know, if you ever move to England, then okay. Then you're gonna need to think of a brief and maybe it's 25p. I don't know, whatever. Then that's when you would have to define it differently. If not, then you just define pound and it comes out as pound, okay? Okay, on the hyphen, this is the way that you need to do it, okay? So if they're talking about, okay, and that's what they're talking about. So if that's the way, whatever stroke you use for hyphen, then you just have to define it as that. And if there's a number on either side, then that's the way you have to define it. So this shows that it's a number and that it's going to be a numeral. The N is the numeral, okay? Slash is the same way, okay? You need to define the slash as that, okay? And really, you know, I think you can get away with just this, because if you write the numbers, it should automatically put them together. It should automatically know to put them together because you shouldn't have to define the number. So you'll have to mess with it a little bit. I don't really use the hyphen, you know, a whole lot, so.
Yeah, I don't use that. I don't know when you would use that.
Yeah.
Really.
And the slash too.
Because you have stuff for it to convert like to dates. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
when you would use that.
And I, you know, I don't know. And maybe that's what they're saying. If you don't have a way to convert it to date, then that's what they're talking about. Same with the slash on first. So if you write out first and you want it as an ordinal, we'll convert to first depending on your setting on the ordinal rules. So that's in your user settings. So you have to be careful how you define it, okay?
10, I
Yeah.
believe, and then after that, it'll be the digit with the
Yeah.
letters.
So if that's the way you do date, May 1st. So, you know, it's supposed to say, and you have to write this differently, okay? So you have to, months required, digits, or, whatever. All of my dates are done differently just because of May. So I do January, JAN with an asterisk. Everything's with an asterisk. FEB with an asterisk. MAR with an asterisk for March. April is PRIL with an asterisk. So just to keep it simple and consecutive, I use the asterisk just to kind of keep it consecutive. Okay, and then here's the conversions of the different things. So if you want it as a word, numbers written out, then that's how it's defined. Okay? Generic digits, time conversion, and that's how I do time. Like I was telling you just a while ago, when I do 9 time, that's a 9:00. So that converts it to the time, and that's how you do it. Okay? Same thing with ordinals. You have to be careful with the way that you define it. Okay? So it's going to be the number, you want it as a numeral, and then as an ordinal. Okay? Like on the times, it's kind of the same way. So if you do the time like she was talking about, like Sick was talking about, if you use it in one stroke, that's what they're telling you have to do. So if you use it as one U, and that's what they're saying that's how they do it. That's how you have to define it. 1, bracket, £, T for time, close bracket. So 1U, 2U, 3U, 4U converts it into time. Same thing with Roman numerals. And as ordinals too. Okay, so if you do 1G, I do the E, 1E, 2E, 3E, 4E, that's how it's supposed to be defined.
But you use your number bar.
I use my number bar, so
Yeah, I write mine out.
it's 1E, it's not WUN.
So I have to, mine is a 2-stroke, so I have to write WUN, and then I cut back with the E with an asterisk.
Okay.
And that is and then the
Okay.
asterisk with the T for time.
Yeah, then that's all you need to define,
Yeah.
is the E to represent that. Because it represents that there's going to be a number, and that's what that represents right there, is that there's going to be a number somewhere in there, and that you want it as an ordinal. And then that's the way you have to define it. Okay? Date conversion,
I don't know how to do that. I've never tried.
I don't need it. To me, this is our apostrophe, so I don't do it that way just because of that. But that's how I do it. Okay, and this is just kind of a few examples. How would you define that? Select.
Find what, 3?
Yeah. It's asking you, how would you define it?
What is already there?
Huh?
It's already there.
It's already there is correct. How would you define that?
Is it not already $100?
That's it. That's how you define it. Okay? So it's telling you right here, 3, answer, it's not needed. You don't need it because the 3, it already knows what to do. $100, yards, same thing. Okay? Let's do this.
With Eclipse, 2 basic steps will give you excellent number translation. Fine-tune your dictionary and fine-tune your number settings. Pure number bar strokes aren't even necessary in your dictionary. Other numbers building blocks will be defined as words, not digits. 100, 1,000, million describe orders of magnitude. Write the word dollars when you hear it, not before, and it, like other money words, will trigger number conversion with the appropriate currency symbol. If a number doesn't translate right, it's probably because of an old dictionary entry. Remove such entries and your building blocks will work properly. A separate presentation deals with finding and moving entries in and out of your dictionary. Occasionally you'll want to convert numbers after translation. Mark the number first, then click on the toolbar icon, or use the menu or the speed key, Control and the pound key together. Here you see your number as it starts out, and as it would look depending on which format you choose. However, your numbers settings will control, and so the gear icon takes you quickly to adjust those settings. Within these short presentations, it's not possible to show all that Eclipse automatic number conversion can do. So a separate in-depth ePower video tutorial is available on automatic number conversion.
All right. Any questions about that? So if you want to change them, that's what it is, okay? In the hyperkeys. So if you want to change numbers to a social security, zip code, time, date, it's shift whatever letter. You see that lowercase letter is the I for Roman numeral. That's the only one. I don't know, because I think well, that's not right, because I is up. I is up.
Yeah, mine doesn't even do it. I was gonna say also on here the shift N for number.
Yeah.
It wasn't working either. It was bringing up like the little convert quantity. Oh, quantity, generic, superscript, subscribe, ordinal.
Yeah.
I guess.
So that's what it's doing. It's changing it. So what was the?
Oh, and.
Yeah. See with this, I think this is pretty straightforward. It's just a number conversion.
Let's see some of the choices that...
Yeah, it's just going to tell you, it's going to go through here and tell you every time, like if the number 230 is on there, all it's going to do is just give you in AutoMagic the different options that you have. So it's always thinking ahead, okay? It's thinking for you. So if you forgot to put the $ for 230, then all you have to do is hit number 2. It's always going to give you that option, as in time, as in regular number, money, date, time on a number. It's usually always going to give you that, okay? So whenever there's a number, if you forgot to do the symbol for time or money or whatever, then it's always going to give you that option, okay? We don't really need to kind of waste time going through this, because that's really all it's going to tell you.
Hotkeys, pop-ups, and fonts are a few AutoMagic display options that are found in the View Toggles dialog. Let's see. At the right edge of the info bar, AutoMagic can show these speed keys or hyper keys that are available as keyboard shortcuts. This can help new users to learn the keyboard shortcuts for editing efficiency, but more experienced users may want to hide them. This can be done by going to the View Toggles dialog and unchecking the box that appears next to Hotkeys. Your AutoMagic choices can also be displayed in a small pop-up window that can appear after a short delay. The delay is expressed in milliseconds, and the default setting is ½ a second. So as I move my cursor, the choices offered by AutoMagic are brought closer to where I'm looking. In fact, you can hide the info bar entirely and still see your AutoMagic choices only in a pop-up. To do this, go to the View Toggles dialog and uncheck the box next to Info Bar, but leave the choices next to AutoMagic and Pop-up checked. That
Do you understand what it's saying there? On the little pop-up?
It's saying the info bar is what's at the top? Or where's your info bar? Because it's saying that the AutoMagic, it was what's on the side, and the pop-up is every time your cursor goes over the word.
So every time you move your cursor, this little pop-up is going to come up,
Right.
and it's going to give you options. It's still going to have the AutoMagic if you have that.
Right, so what's the info, I mean, why is it saying to uncheck the info bar but leave the AutoMagic and pop-up check?
You can hide the info bar and show AutoMagic choices in a pop-up. Oh, so you can, I mean, the info bar is over here too.
Oh,
So you can hide the info bar or whatever. But the AutoMagic is in the pop-up. So that's what it is. AutoMagic is the pop-up. So you can just have it as a pop-up and give you more room over here. This is the info bar over here, where the AutoMagic keys are. But if you have it checked, then it's going to keep this open over here, which is what I do. It gives me two options. But I have the pop-up too. But it takes a little bit of getting used to have this little bar every time you move your word. But it's right above the word, so you never have to move your eyes from there, to look left, towards the info bar, if that makes sense. So if you want to, you can check it, kind of mess with it, and kind of see what it looks like. It takes some getting used to. So be careful with it.
frees up some space on the screen without depriving you of your AutoMagic choices. Don't forget that you can adjust the font that's used to display your AutoMagic choices. For instance, you could use a smaller font that's narrow and bold. The AutoMagic choices would still be very readable, but now the info bar would not need to be as wide. So you could use the mouse to hover over the right edge. The AutoMagic choices would still be very readable, but now the info bar would not need to be as wide. So you could use the mouse to hover over the right edge of the info bar, then hold down the left mouse button while you drag to the left. That could free up some display space for other elements on your screen.
Got it?
it's all this exercise.
Yeah. We're not going to go through that. So if you want to go through that on your own time, you can. And it kind of gives you the answers down at the bottom. So if you want to go through and kind of see what the answers were, it gives you the answers. All right? Any questions about that? Numbers? Huh? No? All right. Okay, and on the punctuation, it's just kind of telling you, if you want something to punctuate, it's always going to punctuate back, okay? Unless you tell it not to. So if you need a comma right there, you hit comma, and you see where it's going to put it. So if you want the comma after word, then you have to put it on your. I think you guys kind of know that already, but that's what it's.
The first letter of a word is a magic spot where Eclipse anticipates your needs, like the need to throw in a dash. So when you need a fast dash, just press the hyphen keys. And on the less frequent occasions when you do need a hyphen,
Y'all know this, don't y'all? About the hyphens? You know, if you need a hyphen, you know, say you need a hyphen in between hyphen and inserted, you put your cursor right here on inserted, just hit the little hyphen button and it automatically puts a hyphen there. Okay?
just press the shift and hyphen keys together. I need dashes where you see the blue arrows, so I'll place my cursor on the beginning of this word and press the hyphen, and then move over, hyphen, move over, hyphen.
You see how it's doing that? Slick? You know how to do that? Huh? You ain't gotta be yelling. Just take it easy. Asking a simple question.
And each time, it only took one key to insert those dashes. I want to insert hyphens where you see the purple arrows. So I've placed my cursor on the beginning of this word and I'll press shift hyphen. See how the cursor moved over? Shift hyphen, shift hyphen. Let me replay that for you so that you can see how quickly Eclipse can hyphenate a phrase for you. Here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are just two ways in which the automatic punctuation features can make your editing more efficient.
I'll tell you, there's another way of doing it.
The first letter of a word
Is marking. You know, so you're right here and you do F7 and you want a hyphen in between all of those, then you hit hyphen and you see how it did it? So like, are you paying attention? What are you doing? Quit moving around. All right? So you do it again, mark the same one, hyphen takes it off. So if you did it and you don't need to go back and just kind of, you know, arrow over and take it out. All you do is mark the same thing that you did, hit the hyphen again, and it takes it out. Okay? It also works with quotes. So you do shift quote. See how it did it? So it says, you know, the man said blah, 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 and you need to do it. You don't have to come here and do shift quote, then arrow over. You just mark the spot that you need hyphenated or in quotes, and it automatically does it. Okay?
Let's see some of the choices that Eclipse AutoMagic offers relating to punctuation. Punctuation. Words like yes or no are often the start of a paragraph, or perhaps they require some punctuation right before them. AutoMagic makes it easy to insert any paragraph type, or if I press 1, I'll see that Eclipse would insert the appropriate punctuation mark. Although in this case, AutoMagic would involve one extra step, the goal is to teach a new user that with your cursor on the first character of a word, Eclipse is ready to...
So you don't have to go through this whole step. All you need to do is just remember these little things right here and where you want to put it, okay? So if you know, it's always going to do it to the left, okay? Unless you want it at the end, and it doesn't matter if you're in hyperkeys or not. You can do the Alt-Q, Alt-P, whatever, and it puts it there.
Insert punctuation for you without requiring several cursor movements or the deletion of some other punctuation before you can insert the new one. If I do insert a comma here, AutoMagic makes it easy to remove or change this punctuation in case I really needed something different. This sentence should read, I don't know if it is nice. The word it is repeated. AutoMagic offers as its first choice to place a comma in front of this second it. If I press 2, that would insert a dash, which is what I really need here. And if I press 3, that would delete the extra it. At the end of a paragraph, automatic choices include some punctuation changes. Of course, you could change the ending punctuation to a period, question mark, or dash from any point in the sentence. But this is one more example of how Automagic is trying to teach new users, and perhaps even experienced users, the shortcuts that make it possible to do these edits with a minimum of steps.
Stuff we've already gone over, and you know, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it.
If you purchase the professional version of Eclipse, is anything going to change?
No. I mean, there's some things that you can't, well, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what, because I never really used a student version. I know that like copying some stuff and things like that is a little bit different, you know, because like y'all's, they don't want y'all to be able to do work on it, you know, so they don't want like a professional reporter to buy the student version or get the student version free and be able to get out a transcript and stuff like that. So there's some stuff that I don't know exactly, but I know that there's some things that you can't do on the student version that you can on the professional version. Okay, any questions about that?
Let's look at some of the functions that Total Eclipse makes available once you've marked a block of text. Marked a block of text. I'll press F7 or hyperkey M several times to mark this phrase. If I now press the comma key, the phrase is surrounded by commas. I can...
That one's pretty neat. Okay, I don't know if y'all ever use that. It's not that really that big of a deal, but it's pretty neat. I mean, when you want to mark a big old space or whatever and you want commas there, but I mean, you can easily just move over and just put the commas there, but that's one way of doing it.
When you're editing, you're already knowing and you're kind of like already doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if they put, like whenever they say, well, in fact, I always do commas on the in fact.
Oh, like you
So-
do mark in fact and then you just hit the comma.
Yeah. So it puts it on both sides and you're going.
Mark and press the opening or closing parenthesis to place the phrase within parentheses. Mark and press the opening or closing bracket to bracket this phrase. Mark and press the quote key to surround with quotes. And mark and surround with single quotes by pressing the apostrophe key. If I mark this phrase and press the hyphen key, the phrase will be hyphenated for me. Not sure whether workbooks is spelled with a space or not? You can mark the words and press Alt-S. A message will appear in the lower left corner of the screen if this is a correct spelling. With the word still marked, you can press the space bar to remove the space and create the compound word.
See how they did that? That's pretty neat too. But, or you just tab over, move it, you know, backspace or whatever. They're just telling you different ways of being able to do it.
If you mark text, Eclipse is also ready to perform several stitch functions. You can go to the Edit section of User Settings, so you could say force all letters to be uppercase, force just the first letter to be uppercase, or leave each letter as it is. I'll mark and press the hyphen key to stitch with hyphens. If I mark again and press the hyphen key, it removes the hyphens. So mark and hyphen to stitch with hyphen.
That one is really good, okay? Because if you need to do that and have to go through that whole thing and do it, holy cow, it's time consuming, okay? So when you go through and put the thing in there, maybe you just want the first word capitalized. I don't know when you would use that, but it kind of gives it to you as an option, and you can do it. So it, you know, over here in the Auto Magic, it'll kind of give you that option. But once you've already hyphenated it, then it gives you that option. But if not, it's just going to write Abercrombie, and it's going to, over here, it's just going to give you different variations of what you would probably mean by Abercrombie. Okay?
Can you use a spell check on the state test the way it told you that this way's correct?
I think you can.
You can, because you're allowed to use a dictionary
Yeah.
on your skills portion.
Yeah.
Not on the written, but on the skills.
Yeah, not on the written, definitely not on the, that would be pretty cool though, if you could, but no, you can't.
Hyphens. I'll mark CDC and press the period key to stitch with periods. And I'll mark examination and press the tilde key to stitch with lock spaces. Finally, you can mark a number and press Control and the pound key to open the number conversion dialog. Input will show you what you have marked, and output will show you how the number would be transformed. I'll select generic and OK.
Got it? Pretty straightforward. But this is the different ways that you can do it. You know, once you've already marked it, you just kind of keep doing the hyphen or whatever, and it'll kind of do it the different ways. See how it does it right here with the large M, or if they spelled it out, then you need it all in caps. Okay?
When would it ever be small?
If it's not a proper word, I guess.
Or
You know.
if they're spelling the word or something.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
just spelling a word.
Yeah. You know, and they're not going to do it very often, I guess. Like, you know, well, how would you spell it? How would you spell frog? F-R-O-G.
Oh.
You know, I think I would still do it in caps, just because it signifies that they're spelling it out, but it's not really a proper name. So it really doesn't need to be capitalized. So it all depends on personal preference.
Let's see some of the choices that Eclipse Automagic offers when you have block marked text. As soon as I mark text, Automagic offers me an easy way to mark more text, or to mark more prior text. Since I want to mark not just surgery but arthroscopic surgery, I could use choice 5 to mark more prior text. Now if I press 1, Automagic will copy this. As soon as I mark text, Automagic offers me an easy way to mark more text, or to mark more prior text. Since I want to mark not just surgery but arthroscopic surgery, I could use choice 5 to mark more prior text. Now if I press 1, Automagic will copy this text to the clipboard, and the speed key for this function in the future would be Control-C. And if I press 2, Automagic will ask for a Google search on the phrase arthroscopic surgery. No need to copy and paste or retype the text, just to use Google. If I press 3, or I use the speed key Control-, Automagic will open the Text Attributes dialog. Perhaps I want to put this text in italics. And if I press 4, Automagic would offer to surround this phrase with punctuation. So for instance, surround with quotes, dashes, parentheses, put a hyphen between the two words, or surround with commas. Automagic is dynamic, so the choices will depend on what you have marked. And actually, this is an instance where using Automagic actually adds a step for surrounding with punctuation. But the goal here is for Automagic to act as a teacher, so that a new user can learn that once text has been marked, pressing the quotes key would surround that text with quotation marks, or pressing the parenthesis key would surround the text with parentheses. Again, the goal is to teach new users to be as efficient as possible and to remind experienced users of features that they may have forgotten or never really discovered in the first place.
What's the point of pulling it up on Google?
Well, if you need to, pull it up. So, I mean, say they say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You're like, what? Well, you can Google it and see how it's spelled, or if it's hyphenated, or if it's capped, some words are capped, or what. That's a way of going into Google and checking it.
Now that we can't use on a test. Right?
No. No. But it's a pretty neat little thing that Eclipse has. But no, you can't use that on.
Let's see how to copy and paste and perform other.
We didn't go through these things, did we, in the regular class? No, so I mean, we're already doing new stuff, so pay attention. Slick, wake up.
Block functions within Eclipse. Within
Oh my
Eclipse.
gosh, wait, these are block, like, so now we're talking about, are we still talking about like marking a word?
Yeah, you can mark, cut, paste. So this is different. This is different than the block files.
Okay.
Okay?
Cut, copy, and paste are basic features of the Windows operating system. Naturally, you can mark all or part of an Eclipse text document and copy it onto the Windows clipboard. Then paste from the clipboard into either another Eclipse text document or even another Windows program, such as Microsoft Word or an email program. Eclipse uses the standard speed keys for these basic functions.
So it's kind of the same thing that you use, like if you were going to use in Microsoft Word. You highlight it, Control C is copy, Control V is paste. If you want to cut it out, so it's still kind of the same things. So that's one good thing that they use, is that it's still kind of the same functions.
When would we copy and paste to an email? Can we do that? I thought transcripts were official.
They are, but I mean,
I guess it's the
like
same.
like when this is just like an example. This is, I mean, I don't know that you would put necessarily a transcript in there, but like what I do, when I go through and I'm editing a job and they're telling me, you know what, I need that job from last Thursday. Okay, well, I make two files. I make a morning file, afternoon file. Well, my morning file may have 10 cases in it. Well, you know what? I just need that one case. So you have to go through, in order to use the WAV files. The WAV files are the recordings. So you put your asterisk right here, turn on the WAV file, and it starts reading. It starts the WAV file. Do you understand what I'm even talking about? Yeah, you got that look of what? Your machine has a little outlet on it. Mine does, the Diamante. So what you do is you plug an external mic into the machine, and it amplifies everything. Well, now you can record WAV files onto your little SD card. So not only are you recording every stroke that you're taking, but you're also recording a WAV file. So you put your cursor right here, turn the WAV file on, which is Alt-J, turns it on, and it's like a recording. It's like I'm talking right now.
So WAV file is audio.
It's audio, yeah.
But
on
you
our
can
machine.
place it where on the.
You can put it anywhere
and
you
it'll
want,
play
and it
wherever
starts
you-
playing
Okay.
right there. It's awesome, and it saves a lot of time. And I think I told you guys about this. When I first started, we used to use cassettes. So if you're on page 144 of 267, and the cassette is at 0, you have to go through there and try to find the place where exactly this thing starts. Are you kidding me? Now, you just put your cursor right there, and it records it. Okay?
So this is mandatory. We need this WAV thing to be working out there.
It's, I'd have it.
Isn't it a function?
You go take a doctor's depot, and you're gonna trust your notes on, some of the medicines and, some of the things that he may be talking about. Yeah. So really, the WAV file is just a backup. That's all it is. It's just a backup
On the machine.
on the machine.
I think the newer machines that are coming out with that function now, where you can do that.
Yeah,
and just place
I mean,
it.
they all have them. They all have them now. So it's pretty neat. What were you gonna ask?
I don't remember.
Oh.
What did that have to do with copy and paste though? We don't copy and paste anything. right?
Well, because what I was saying was, like when I do my files, I go in on the day, okay? So instead of copying that whole thing, pasting it onto a totally different file, and then having to move the WAV files also, I just do it in that file on that day. And then when I'm done, I go to the top of that file, the one that I just need, copy it, mark it, copy it, go into another file, and I'm going to show you how to do it. I mean, it's actually pretty neat. You create a totally different file, paste it in there. The bad thing about it is now that you've created that file, only the words go over there, not the WAV files. So if you have a question of, well, man, I was going through reading that thing and it doesn't make sense. Well, now you have to get out of this file that you just created, go back to the old file because that's the one that has the WAV files in it, and listen to it there. So you don't transfer the WAV files to the new file. And the reason that you're doing that is because if I started on page 144 and I put my title pages in there or whatever, now my title page is going to be on 144. And it's going to go down to 200 and something. Well, I don't need that. They needed it at page 1 because all they needed was that file. So I had to transfer it into another file to make it page 1 now. Does that make sense? Okay, that's why.
Are machines not fast enough to close it and start a new file each time something?
Well, I mean, you can, but in my court, you know, we probably hear 40 cases a day. You know? So I just make 2 files just to make it easy. I make a morning and an afternoon. Now, if you're going to go take a depot, yeah, you just make a new file. And say you go to a depot and you're going to take the depot of 3 different people. They're going to be short, no big deal. I would make 3 different files. That's when you push end, it ends that file, opens up a brand new file. So you push end or off, no, it's end. Push end, creates a new file, push end again, turns your machine off. Well, you don't want to do that. You just want to push in, turns it, closes that file. And now there's even ways, and maybe one day I'll bring my machine and I'll let you guys see it. But there's ways of closing that file and then going back into that file, and it takes you to the bottom and you can keep writing again.
So I was gonna say, if it's the same, like for example, you end the day and you're gonna take the deposition of the same witness the next day, and you wanna, is it like doing the whole appending? You have to do a whole new.
It's a totally different day.
Oh,
So everything's going to be different.
Okay.
Now, if you went home and edited that job and you made a job dictionary, then you can go in and use that dictionary that you use for different briefs for that same day and that same case.
But
So
it would be a new file.
it's going to be a new file because it's a totally different day.
Okay.
Now, if you took that case and they said, you know what, we're going to break for lunch. Okay. Well, I don't know if I would leave your stuff here. You might want to pack your stuff up because we're not able to lock the office, and I don't know if you want to leave your stuff. Okay, so you shut everything down, leave it in your car, go to lunch, come back, set it back up, you turn on your machine, there's a way of going back into that file, into the same file. You don't have to create a new file, and you go into that file again, and then just pick up from right there. Yeah.
That's doing the Alt-T, like when you close it down, how I don't know if it's the right way, but I do Alt-T to translate notes, and then I select whatever file it is, it opens it up and asks me if I want to append it, and I say, yeah, I click append, and then it will say from first or last, like the place, like the last stroke or the first stroke.
Yeah.
I think I hit the
But that's
last.
translating your notes. That's something totally different. It's going to translate your notes again. So you have to be careful with that. I don't know what you're doing. And we'll have to
Well,
do it
lets- And, well, I mean, it lets me write in there. when I
in
do
that same file
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if that's the way it's supposed to be done or what, but that's the way
Well,
it lets me do it.
not necessarily, but, you know, we'll kind of go over it when we get to that point of writing on the machines and stuff like that, and then, you know, but your machine's not gonna be able to do it, is the only bad thing. Well, yeah, it is. I guess you're saying that it is. But you're not gonna have, like my version of it, where my machine automatically goes in, I can go into that file, open up that file again, and it'll bring up the month. So the whole month of February, and I can pick any day and go back in there and start writing on that day. So it's pretty neat. So you can go into any file and kind of start writing on it again.
You can also access them through icons on the toolbar. Of course, you'll see these same choices on the block menu. But if you're a mouse lover, you could click and drag to select text, and then right-click to select these same functions from a context menu. You have to mark text before it's ready to go onto the Windows clipboard. And if you're trying to capture not just the text of a paragraph, but also its formatting information, one way to do this is to place your cursor at the beginning of a paragraph and press the home key twice so that you capture the paragraph type. Then begin marking. Once you begin marking anything that moves...
You see what it's telling you right there? So if you want to mark the whole thing and you want this thing to stay centered, then you need to mark it over here also. And you press home twice and it gets you over there, and then mark it down, okay? It's not really that big of a deal. So if you mark it here and it goes all the way down and you come back on the page, it's really not that big of a deal. It comes over and this thing's way over here. All you do is come over here, click this thing, it opens up that box, and then you just push centered again. It's not really that big of a deal. So as long as you mark it from here down, the rest of it's gonna be in that format. Does that make sense?
Your cursor will increase or decrease the amount of marked text. As in other Windows programs, you can also just hold down the Shift key while you move. Copy and write. Leave the text in your original file. Whereas cut and separate actually delete the text from your original file. So what's the difference in these two sets of functions? Copy and cut simply place text on the clipboard, but write and separate actually create a new file. So if you use write or separate, you'll have to give your new file a name and let Eclipse create it for you.
You see what it's telling you? So if you want to create a new file, I guess that's one way of doing it. Write and
Actually delete
write and
the
separate.
text.
Okay? But I'm going to show you a different way, and the way that I do it, and it's kind of the same way. But you don't use the icons. You don't need that many icons up here, okay? He's just kind of telling you how to do it through the icons.
Text from your original file. So what's the difference in these two sets of functions? Copy and cut simply place text on the clipboard, but write and separate actually create a new file. So if you use write or separate, you'll have to give your new file a name and let Eclipse create it for you. Paste and read insert text into the file in which your cursor is located. Paste inserts the text from the clipboard, whereas read inserts text from a file. So if you select read, you'll have to indicate the file whose contents you want to insert.
And that's kind of like inserting the block files there, okay? But there's a totally different way of doing it. It's Alt-R. Alt-R brings up your block files or any other files that you want, and then it's going to put the file in there. So if you want to read a file in there, then that's how you do it. But they're just kind of showing you a different way of doing it through the icons.
It says when you cut, you rename it. Are you creating a new file because that's no longer in there, so that's considered a new file because
Yeah.
you're missing stuff? Or you're creating a new file?
Yeah,
with
because you're not
the
copying
file?
it now, you're cutting it out. Yeah, you're cutting it out, so it's gonna move it out of there. Okay? So be careful with when you cut, paste, copy, and what it does.
One final note, there are similar block functions in your Eclipse dictionaries and note files. The block function commands that you use in your text documents will perform a related function in your dictionaries and note files.
Any questions about that?
No.
So you understand, I mean, you can do it in hyperkeys also, okay? And that's what it's telling you right there, that these functions do. Block divide, you can block write, block read, block copy, block paste, all in your hyperkeys. And that's what it's telling you, okay? Got it? Really? Hey. What are you yelling?
Let's see how to split files or merge files. Int files. In this example, I'd like to split out the testimony that occurred after lunch. I'll place my cursor where I want the new file to begin and start marking. Then I'll press Control Page Down to go to the end of the file and either click on the separate icon or go to the block menu or use speed key Shift Control X. When I name and open the file, I will of course be deleting text from one document and transferring it into another.
Well,
You see what it's saying?
no, I don't understand why. It takes me a while for me to comprehend something, so I'm gonna have to ask you over and over again until I understand. No, seriously. Why
I
would
know.
you do that? I mean,
Huh?
I don't understand why you would do that if it's from the same day. Why?
Well, I mean, they're just showing you how to do it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it doesn't really matter that it's from the same day or whatever. They're just showing you how you do it if you want to do it.
But this is to split a file, a job.
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
So you're taking that text and moving it. So now that text isn't there anymore. Now you're not copying it, you're cutting it and moving it. Okay? So that's why I told you have to be careful with what you do. Like even when I do my work on the dated file, I copy it. I don't cut it. Okay? Does that make sense?
Why do you copy it?
I copy it because I have a backup. So in case something happens to that file, I still have it over here.
Over here where?
Over here in the dated file. So all I'm doing is copying it from the dated file and creating a new file. Okay?
So you always copy when
I always copy and paste. I don't cut and put it somewhere else.
But you specifically do that because all yours are in one big file, all your cases.
Yeah. But, I mean, I would do it anyway. I would always do it that way anyway, because once you cut it and move it somewhere else, if something happens, then it's gone. Okay?
So you're saying you never work from the original file, you're always working on a copy?
No, I work from the original till it's done. And then I move it to the copy, and then I print it from there. I print it from the copy. Okay? So everything else stays over here. So the thing that I just copied stays over here with my WAV files. So this isn't necessarily my finished draft. Okay, so if I ever need to come back and get it, then I'm going to have to come back and proofread it because I haven't done my final draft. I do it in this one. Okay? But when I print it, I want to make sure that it's all set up the way that I need to see it when I'm getting ready to proofread it, and that it's going to read page 1 all the way down. That it's not going to read page 144 to 289. I want to see what the final draft is going to be like, so that's why I put it in a totally different file. Okay?
It's now a separate transcript, as I wanted. Now just the opposite example. I want to merge the morning and afternoon sessions. So I'll place my cursor at the end of the morning file and use the read command to read one file into another. Of course, it's also on the block menu, and the speed key is Alt-R.
And that's what I was telling you about merging a file in, okay? So if you want to put in that there's going to be a break and you didn't put it on your machine, break, but you need to put it in there, that's how you do it, Alt-R. Don't write this down, it's not really that important, so just kind of listen. Write it down.
I'm trying to grasp it. When I write it down, I don't understand.
You don't understand when you write it?
No, I need to like pay attention. Writing, I'm not paying attention to what I'm writing.
And you can remember just by listening,
If
paying
I'm
that close
fully-
attention?
Yes.
Wow, okay. Well, that's good. And if that's how it works for you, fantastic. But that's how you do it, it's Alt-R.
I just don't understand. Are you saying you took a break and you didn't put break, you
Yeah.
just ended the files and then came back on a new file?
And then
This
just
is-
came back and they're like, okay, let's go on the record. So you're ready to say, oh man, when I'm going through and proofreading it, I forgot to put the whereupon.
Use the read.
See how it says lunch recess? Okay, we're gonna go off the record. We're going to lunch, okay. Now you put your little lun for lunch recess and it automatically comes up. Well, say you forgot to hit lun. Now it's not there. Now you come back, they're waiting on you. Hey, let's go, okay. Back on the record, boom, boom, boom. You forgot to put it there. Well, the person who's reading this needs to know that there was a lunch break, or that there was a break, or an off-the-record discussion, or mark an exhibit. All of that stuff are block files. And to read a block file in is Alt-R. Okay? Yep, you're not getting it. Atta girl.
Because you're saying all you forgot to do was simply put the parenthetical in.
Yeah.
Why can't you just go in there and write it?
Why do you need to write it when you already have it? You already have it as a block file.
Just those two words, I have to bring that in?
Well, what if you put, like mine, whereupon a lunch recess was had? You're gonna write that every time?
No, people have briefs.
No, but like, the job has already ended, correct?
Yeah, you're already done with the job
That's what I-
and forgot to put that in. So now you're going through and editing the job, and it's like, oh my God, I forgot to put that we had a lunch recess in. So you're gonna go in and type that in every time?
And then
When you have a
to
block
format it.
file that already says it? You don't need to.
You just hit Alt, like you put your cursor at the end, you hit Alt-R, you select your file, and it boom.
You hit Alt-R.
To read one file into another.
And watch.
Of course, it's also on the block menu, and the speed key is Alt-R.
Alt-R it, put the file in, you're done.
And it's gonna make more sense once we start messing around with the machine, okay? But you hit Alt-R and it brings this thing up. You tab over here to where you get to the L's, find the lunch, hit lunch, open, automatically puts it in there. You don't have to write anything.
Because you're not writing on that anymore, you closed it out.
You're
Because
doing,
that's what I'm
you're doing it the
understanding.
completely hard way if you're writing it every time.
But
You're-
you see,
Yeah, you're
I
kind of like.
feel like he's just saying specifically the parenthetical. What we're talking about, we closed it, started a new file, now we need to bring that whole new file in, correct?
No.
No, they're talking about
He's talking
something
about-
totally different now.
Yeah, he's talking about reading in,
Parenthetical.
yeah.
Reading in a block file
Block
or
file.
parenthetical. So that's what these parentheticals are. They're block files.
Okay.
Block files are the parentheticals, marking an exhibit, bench conferences, all of that stuff, and it's just telling the reader what's going on.
But just to be sure and we understand, Alt-R is also used to merge a file. Do you use, like, how they were explaining before, I don't know if I'm explaining this right. You need to merge a